Hello, my name is Cindy Sparkman, and this will be my presentation for the assignment that is due on September 28th. It's my classroom strategy. In this presentation, you will learn my teaching experience, classroom environment, instruction strategies I use, student engagement, and assessments that I use. So, a little background about me. Um, I was a social worker prior to teaching. I was a social worker for the Division of Children and Family Services for the state of Arkansas for many years. I believe that is an asset with my teaching. It does help me to relate to children in a different way than regular route teachers do. I do work at Green Forest Middle School. I teach eighth grade science, which is interesting in itself. A little knowledge about Green Forest is the diversity at Green Forest is a little bit different than it is at most other places. We have a higher percentage of Hispanic and Asian population than most of the surrounding areas do. And for my classroom environment, because I do teach science, we do have tables. So I have those grouped up. That does make a difference than the regular individual desk. Placement of the tables can be difficult sometimes, but I do have it placed where the kids are sitting by each other in groups. I do have boards on three different walls. That way, that it with those tables that becomes helpful is because there is no technical front of my room, so that they can look at different boards. And by now, we are in week 8. By now, they're familiar with what boards they need to look for what. Desk placement, like I said too, is also very important, and it does change quite often. But we do a lot of group work, so we have multiple children sitting together, and so that all does play into the environment of the room. It does make a difference with placement. And when I'm talking about placement, I'm talking about seating arrangements. I'm just now getting to a point. I usually do wait a couple of weeks, but I'm just now getting to the point where I am giving more seating arrangements. Those are beneficial once you get to know your kids, so that you can make the lessons more effective if they're sitting by the proper partner. I do have rules and expectations posted on my walls. I do read over them the first week of school and reference them quite often. So the kids do appreciate the structure and they know what to expect. I can statement and anchor charts are all around my room. Anchor charts come with my curriculum actually, but I can statements. I do have them posted on the board every day. I do read them off, and believe it or not, as much as teachers complain about them, they were beneficial last year. So I do read over my I can statements with my students. I do reference my anchor charts. We use a lot of what's called driving question boards for anchor charts, where the kids have to come up with questions, and as we're going through the lesson, and we see if we can answer those. But it's definitely a reference, because like right now it's helpful, like we are using Newton's 3 laws. I do feel like my kids are getting to the point that they are so comfortable with Newton's 3 laws because of those anchor charts. They are able to utilize them correctly within their work. You also have to be culturally and ethnically sensitive. Again, we have a high level of diversity, and it presents different problems when you do that. So it's helpful to keep those things aware and have things in Spanish and in English and in different languages if you have that issue. That way that the kids' understanding becomes better and they can become more knowledgeable of your subject. The strategies that we use, well, anyone that's in teaching now understands what HQIM stands for, and that is high quality instructional materials. This is research based data that's presented in the content, and is investigative, and it gets the children to utilize critical thinking skills. We use this with our credit curriculum selection. We've went over quite a few. And the last couple of years since I've been there, we have landed on Open SciEd, which everything in that content is already HQIM ready and ready to go. So I usually use that. I base that off of the student's performance. throughout the year as we go. And if the students are falling behind, that's whenever we use our intervention, where I need to speak to them personally about what they don't understand, possibly speak to their parents about engagement, or reach out to other resources such as if they have SPED, or if they have their English language learners, whether they need to have their teacher there that I need to set up a conference with, and we go from there if they need any more assistance. Student engagement. It's really not that difficult in my class. Once you provide an environment where students feel comfortable and encourage them to ask questions, they tend to do that and they get more engaged. But it starts off with their placement, as I said. Once you get to know the kids, setting them by the proper person makes their learning much more sustainable. Organize instruction time. I do not like to lecture, and my kids don't like me to lecture. I'm very hands-on, and so my instruction time is a lot smaller than some. Like I said, I don't like to lecture, and I find that keeps them energized whenever I'm asking them more questions or I'm answering questions with questions, and then they get more engaged and they actually do learn it. And we do a lot of group work in my class, and I explain to them the data behind that, there's science behind that. They actually learn better with peer tutoring than just me lecturing. And so they balance off of each other. Sometimes I switch up groups after they've done a project so that they can double check work and they can see if someone else had a different thought or a different point of view. It works out really well. Or I resort to the popsicle sticks, which got all of their names on it. If they don't feel like engaging that day, which is rare, I will go ahead and pull their names. And they know whenever those popsicle sticks come out that I'm randomly calling on someone, and usually it gets them going to engage in class. And assessments. We do quite a bit, and I've learned, even though I don't like tests, I don't like the big test. And so my students do a lot better with more constant informal assessments than they do formal assessments. So we have a question of the day that's on one board, and they know to come in, get out their composition notebooks, and write the question of the day. The question of the day is usually based off of a word that we have for vocabulary or the previous lesson that they learned. Then I have them in groups, so I am assessing as I'm walking around because I want to hear them use certain words, like out of our vocabulary. And so if they're using those words, I'm assessing that or correcting that. And then, of course, exit tickets. Not every teacher's favorite subject, but they seem to be effective. We also use quizzes. I don't do them very often. I do rely more heavily on IXL than the quizzes I write out myself. IXL gives them the breakdown of what they miss, what's their strengths and what their weaknesses and what they can get better on. And so they are actually able to reference that. We pull that up, and they are actually able to look at the data. And not only are they learning the information that they missed, they're also learning how to take tests and ask questions and how to answer them. Same with the Atlas classroom tools. They have testing on there that I use quite frequently so that my students are more comfortable with taking the Atlas test. We did this last year, and my 8th graders improved 20 points. 20 points over using the Atlas classroom tools at least once a month. And so, in closing, I want to bring up that, yes, I did talk about the classroom environment, instructional materials, and engagement assessment, and an assessment. I think all of these things, once you learn how to work out the balance, it becomes successful. That's good for effective teaching and effective learning, and it creates a great bond between you and your students. I enjoy nothing more whenever my students come back to me, which happens all the time. Once they have moved on past me, and they will say, Miss Sparkman, we've had to use your notes for this class because we didn't understand something, and we're so glad that we kept your notes, or something that they learned from my class. But just the fact that you created that bond with them because of the classroom environment that you created, the instructional materials that you gave, how you got to know them and build the rapport with them to have that engagement with them, and how you were able to assess them properly and get them on the way. They appreciate that, and I always enjoy that. Thank you very much for your time. I hope this presentation did well.